Okay, so the date is May 19th, 2017. This is Tina Peabody, and I'm speaking with Chungchin Chen, former Executive Director of the Capital District Regional Planning Commission, or the CDRPC, between 1980 and 2003. We are speaking in the conference room of the CDRPC this morning. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this, Mr. Chen.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this interview.
So let's start with just how you came to work at the Capital District Regional Planning Commission.
Well, I recall in 1969, I think it's September or October, I happened to stop in Albany during my way for vacation to Boston, and I have a good friend. My roommate at the UC Berkeley already worked for the state, so I visit Albany and stay at his home. That's the first time I know Albany, how Albany looks like, and I have a good impression about Albany. And a couple months later, I found from the ASPO, that's the American Association of Public Planning, a magazine. They advertise they are looking for a chief planner. They're the first such job they create. The chief planner position, and I applied that position. I was invited to come to Albany for the interview. And the exec director is the Louis Dex. And after the interview, he called me back when at that time I was working in Indianapolis, Indiana, as a senior planner there. And they said, yes, we'd like to offer you the job. And I said, well, I was so excited about the offer because the benefit is very good and compared with what I have, and actually you give me another opportunity to extend my career, because I worked for the city of Kansas City before, and that's the city planning department, and then I work for Indiana, that in the Marion County metropolitan planning. It's a regional, another county planning. Now it's a 4-county region, so I able to expand my, professional career from the local to up to the region. So it's a very good opportunity for me to come here.
And actually, would you talk a little about how you planned in both Indianapolis, Indiana,
Mm-hmm.
and Kansas City, Missouri?
Yes.
Would you talk a little bit about how regional planning differed a little bit from the experience you had in those cities?
Well, I think regional planning is much complicated because it deals with so many independent, autonomous local government. To understand the local government structure, for example, in our area, we got county government, the executive called county manager. Then you have county government called county executive, and you have a county administrator. And the board name is all different. And you got a village, you got a town, you got a city, and you got a county. It's a bit complicated. And above, you got to deal with the state, you got to deal with the federal government, and try to coordinate all the local government activity. That's a very, very tough task. So it's quite different, and quite complicated,
So beyond the different levels of government that you had to deal with, what would you also say were the different challenges maybe facing Albany at the time you came to the CDRPC?
Well, I didn't realize, the local government is so parochial, back in that time. And the so-called regional planning is not well accepted by even, the local, citizen. For example, at one time we tried to go to one of the community to do some kind of talk with the local people. They treat us like a communist, regional planning being treated as a communist concept because they never heard regional planning. They don't like it, okay? So you have to educate people, say, hey, no, we are not communists, we are doing planning, okay? They don't understand what planning or, because in communist country, you have a 5-year planning, a 10-year planning, and we talk about long-range planning. They say, oh, you're a communist. They don't like the concept. So you got to, first, thing you have to overcome, is that kind of overcomes that kind of misconception about what the regional planning is all about.
So then I guess my next question would be, what was your regional planning goal all about? Or how would you describe the mission of the CDRPC, and how would you try to explain that to people who didn't quite see the point of regional planning?
Well, at the beginning, the regional planning concept in this country virtually started back in 1965 under the Metropolitan Planning Act, and at that time the federal government really pushed that regional planning concept. So at the beginning, CDRPC virtually acted as the surrogate of the federal government. A lot of money come down from federal government through the state, okay? A lot of project is almost a mandate. You have to have a regional plan in order for local government to apply for grant for public housing, for sewer and water, for open space preservation. So, it's come from up, down, and we get able to say, all right, for local government, to receive the grant, you better have a regional planning. So that's an easy sell because that's somebody, tell local government, you got to accept the regional plan. Okay, so at the beginning, the commission initiated a lot of basic planning project, correction on land use, sewer, and water, open space, demographic and economic, all the basic information. In the last 10 years, we spent a lot of time doing that, collecting information. In addition, we developed a so-called preliminary regional plan. That's a regional plan. And if you read the agenda, of the commission, I don't know whether you read the file or not. I recall it in the first 15 years, the commission, the board, every commission meeting, we spend almost 60-70% of our time just to review local project under the so-called A95 review. You read the A95, section A95 of the federal government. It's the OMB guideline. Okay, every project we can say, all right, here's consistent with regional plan or not consistent.
I'm sorry, could you repeat what the federal guidelines were?
Yeah, that's a A95 review process is initiated by federal OMB, okay? And in order for local government to get approval for their application for a variety of federal government project, public housing, sewer, water, open space, recreation, those, application. And in addition to that, that's some of the social program also require so-called A95 review, yeah.
And so can you talk a little bit more about how the mission changed? So you mentioned things like sewerage, water supply, creating a regional plan. Would you talk a little bit about how priorities changed and the mission changed?
There's a transitional period. I think that, as I say, the first 10-15 years, the commission, the act is a surrogate of the federal government. Okay, so a lot of projects are actually recommended and requested by federal and state government. But after 1980, things start to change. Okay, federal government start to cut down the federal project, okay, funding. And so the commission are facing the choice, okay, you go or just rely on the federal grant, or you have to shift in order to support the operation. So that's, back in 1980, the start to change. So the commission recognized that in order to continue to operate, you got to initiate the project which local really needed. Okay, so that's a change. And so back in 1980, you look at our budget, we kind of shifted from federal support to actually local support. Okay, yeah.
And can you explain what you mean by fully local support?
For local support, I mean, you want to initiate a project which local government demand. They say, okay, this is the kind of project we like you to ask the commission to do it, okay, instead of just listen to the federal and state government, okay, yeah.
So let's get into some more of the specifics.
Yeah.
So you worked at the CDRPC before you were executive director under Sambamurthy Thyagarajan, or known as Tiag. And you worked as both chief planner and then deputy planner before coming executive director.
Yeah.
So would you talk a little bit about what you learned from Tiag about the planning process and maybe how you would compare your priorities as executive director? Because you mentioned that in that period, things changed greatly from the beginning of the organization to your
Well,
tenure.
actually, I helped the commission to hire Tiag. Our first director was forced out, and so they appointed me as the acting director, to help them interview, the candidate. Okay, so I know Tiag very well. He's a very creative planner, a lot of experience in doing regional planning, because before he come here, he almost over 15 years of experience in this country, in a foreign country. He was in London, for the London Council of Government, so he's a very, very unique person, very creative. And during that period, we spent a lot of resources to develop the first so-called general regional plan. Okay, so I don't know, we must still have a document that time in the library. We spent almost $100,000, 3 years to complete that project, and we start to develop this so-called regional land use, which at that time we don't have a computer, and we have to, mandate we could hire about 60 draftmen and look at the air photo and try to interpret what the local land use looked like. That's a very, time-consuming, expensive project, and we did it, okay, and we finished all the basic information about the region during that period of time, okay, yeah.
Would you talk a little bit more about the findings in the regional plan, your first regional plan? You've mentioned it a couple of times. So what did the CDRP see?
Well, I don't know whether you have a document. You look at that document, we come up with several proposals whether the region will develop suburban, as that time, all the development go to the rural area, suburban area, or more controlled development, okay, or central concentrate. We come up with a so-called, alternative or option. That's a part of the regional plan. It's an offer to the area and what they want to choice. And they think that, we in the middle, don't like to concentrate or urban development come to the central city, or go to the suburb. But they come to the middle, like through the Northway, through, the various highway corridor plan. That's what they choose. Yeah.
Okay, so part of this was managing suburban growth.
Yeah, try to, but we choose the middle ground instead of.
And would you say you were successful in managing suburban growth?
Well, you you have to understand the authority or the power of the commission. You know, the commission's plan or decision are only advisory in nature to the local government. We don't really have enforcement, power, and particularly in New York State, which is a strong home rule, state. All the land use are controlled by the local government, including the village, town, and the city. So what we offer is just advisory, and whether they will accept, we don't really have enforcement, Yeah.
So even though you didn't have formal enforcement capacity, you couldn't force anyone to comply with your planning goals. What ways did you try to sort of convince?
You use a persuasion. You got a reason, say this is good, this is bad, you come up with a good reason, to advise. You cannot just say you lose it, you lose that, okay? It's a hard persuasion, approach. Yes, and good information, good advice. That's the only way we can do it. And before we come with the data part, that we can make, I can mention that, how we did differently.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have examples of how you used to persuade?
I mentioned we get transitional periods, back in the first 15 years, and then the next 10 years, we try to move our project more to a local orient project, try to get the local government to accept the commission as an institution, That by itself is sometimes a very difficult process. And for example, at one year, I think back in 1984 or 83, one of the county have a budget crisis, And when the county have that problem, the first line of elimination is the so-called supporting institution, government, or organization like CDRPC. We are not a part of the local government. We are the volunteer, government, support by local government. So they try to cut the commission totally out, from their budget. So you face that kind of issue, and sometimes one county cut, the other county say, all right, since one cut, we are going to reduce our support proportionally. So you face kind of a project issue during 1980 up to the end of 1990. So we kind of always facing the crisis, during that period. So now come to 1990. Well, actually, during that period, I established a few projects, and which become a very popular project, except by local government. The first one is I established, recommend the commission to establish the so-called economic development district. It's the EDA fund project, EDA. Economic Development Administration of the Department of Commerce. That project give the local government a lot of federal grant for local economic development. And the CDRPC is behind all other regions in get into that, because we tried very hard, but the county, they say, oh, we already have our own local county economic development organization. Why you need a region, to do that? So we have to overcome that kind of resistance, but eventually succeed about that, And that year, our commission board membership have to increase from 12 member to 20 member. You look at that. Right now we have a 20 member. That's because of the economic development district project, because the EDA say you got to have more minority participation. Okay, so instead of replace the existing commission with the minority, I say, okay, why don't expand and invite, more minority representation at the commission. So the commission expand to 20 members up to today. Okay, that's a major change of the commission structure. And then in 1983, we successfully created a so-called foreign trade zone. That project is region-wide, and a lot of people support that project. Okay, so gradually we kind of, developed the recognition of the commission as the viable institution. Okay, so that's another step. Okay, and we successful during that 1980 period, and of course, in addition to those two projects, we continue to provide a lot of good information, good, regional profile. We developed a regional profile report, tell people how the region really look like socio-economic, or aspect of the region. And we provide good data service, demographic projection for school district. I think I mentioned that, and we do several environmental projects. So gradually we, become a more accepted, regional institution. At that time, look at this region have two other public regional institutions. That's the CDTA, transportation, that run the bus, okay, and another institution, the CDTC, that doing the transportation planning. And actually, CDTC, in the beginning, the commission is the one supports that CDTC. So we got three major institutions, regional institutions, still exist after almost 50 years. That's a very good record. Yeah. And there's three organizations still, running very well, up to date. Okay. And then at the later part, 1992, 93, at that time, we come out with a major project, so-called Juvenile Detention Facility, okay? And that time we have one commissioner who is from Albany County. He said, oh God, we, have a difficult to have the juvenile, be housed locally. You got to send all the juvenile to Syracuse, to Buffalo, to Long Island, which costs a lot, very difficult situation. And one commissioner said, hey, why don't we develop some kind of a juvenile detention facility, in the area? And they set up a special committee and asked the staff to do a feasibility study. And so I was the one did the feasibility study and presented the commission. And to my total surprise, they said, wow, we don't like create another regional institution, to do that. We like the CDRPC, to carry out that project. And I was the author of the report, and they said, all right, why don't you implement? how am I going to implement? I didn't know anything about the actual implementation, because in the past 30 years, commissions always is advisory nature. We really don't really carry a lot of projects except the EDA, the Economic Development District, and the Foreign Trade Zone. We kind of implement, but to carry, to build a regional detention facility is a major undertaking, and I have to learn from scratch how to do that. Okay, yeah.
So there's a lot to follow up on there. You
Yeah,
talked
yeah.
about a lot of major
Yeah.
projects during your time, but I want to kind of back up
Okay.
and maybe start with the Juvenile Detention Center, because in your memoir, On the Banks of the Hudson, My American Journey,
Yeah.
you say that that was one of the most difficult but the most rewarding project you had at the CDRPC. So why was it the most difficult but rewarding?
Well, we have to overcome all the restriction. Okay. First, the state that really don't recognize the regional institution. Okay, all the state regulation just deal with the county. Okay, for local social project, the state only say, okay, the county is responsible for that. So they create so-called local county social district. That is the county. Okay, all the money have to go through the county. Okay, only county can do that kind of job. Okay, so first thing, how you're going to create a regional, project. Okay, we deal with at that time is Office of Family and Children Service. We deal with their council. They say, "Oh, what a regional, organization. They don't allow us to do anything about that." They say, "You got to go through the county. Only the county can do the job." So we have to overcome that, and we threatened to introduce a new bill, change the legislation, and they finally back up. When they back off and say, "All right, we recognize regional planning can do the job." Okay, that's the first argument. We deal with the lawyer and the entire, and even use our muscle, through our state representative, try to do that. Okay, and then we receive a grant, $2 million, a special grant from the state government. Say, all right, if you're going to build it, here's a $2 million matching grant offered to the commission. That's the first, obstacle, we face. Was the most difficult one is where you're going to locate that facility. Nobody wanted. Nobody wanted county jail or jail or anything. So, every time, me and one of the board members, quietly go to investigate the site, and we try to see, hey, maybe this site will be suitable. As soon as they find out, the resident through their local government representatives to come to the commission, say, no, don't come to my backyard, near me. Yeah, constantly, we had all kinds of, and we said, without a site, the project is going nowhere. So we are lucky at that time that Albany County executive, Michael Breslin, they said, well, behind the county jail, we have a county-owned piece of land. Why don't you take a look at that time, okay? So I quietly, with one of the commissioners who is the architect, and we survey the site. It's a wood area, okay, there's a wetland, the water there, but they say we can overcome that. But the regulations say that no juvenile detention facility can be too close to the county jail. No sound, no sight. You cannot hear, between the two, facility. You cannot see each other. That's the limitation. So you got to be, certain distance from the Albany County Jail. We overcome that, okay? So finally, Albany County say, all right, we will lease that piece of land for $1, okay? So that overcomes that, local NIMI, project. That takes several months. I was so frustrated because nobody wanted to accept that kind of facility. And the third major obstacle is how you're going to fund that, okay? The commission under the charter, create a commission, you cannot borrow money, okay? You cannot have a loan or even owe any money, okay? And the commission doesn't have the power, to do that. So we create the CDY, Capital District Youth Center, okay? Through advice from the good lawyer, they say, all right, we have become, the CDY become this local development organization. Looks like it's a subsidiary of the CDRPC. So we have to create try to relate these two organizations. Okay, so I come up with a formula. Okay, I say, all right, the 9 board member, okay, 5 member come from CDRPC, and 4 member come appointed by each county. Okay, so create CDY as an independent organization, but also attached to CDRPC. And they appoint me as the chief administrator to support CDY, so all connect. So it's a very good setup, okay? But the other difficulty is for each county to support it, they have to buy in, say, all right, I would like to send so many kids to use the facility because the bank require you to have some support, that you build it, you must be fill up or use it. You become a vacant, the bank say, all right, the project is not viable. They are not going to loan you the money. Okay, so I have to develop a formula based on the record and the projection. So Auburn County will use 6 bed, Schenectady 2 bed, Stogard 1 bed, Rensselaer 2 bed, that kind of formula. And a lot of give and take in negotiation, nobody want to take more. So I overcome that, eventually agree. So all right, we'll make sure that the facilities at least utilize 75% all the time. That, we overcome that. So it's a lot of, kind of give and take in negotiation. And it's very interesting. And then the rest, when the architect to build a building or set up administration, that's much easier. But the first 3 items I mentioned is much more difficult. I learned from the beginning. When I was in planning school in the UC Berkeley, I don't learn all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So can I ask you to back up for 1 second
Yeah.
and talk a little bit about, so you built this regional juvenile detention facility.
Yeah.
Can you talk about why it was needed?
Well, at that time, the juvenile did the crime, there's the overflow because the state at that time, there's only 6 other detention facility in the state. The total number of bed is about 400 bed, okay? And all the county, at that time, there's an increase of juvenile crime, crime, and everyone scrambled to find the facility to send their kid, that's a difficult situation. Is the commission say, oh, well, why don't we build it then something which we can take care of our kid, so we don't have to send the sheriff and the social worker to transport the kid to outside area. But let me tell you, this project, we are the first one in the nation to have a so-called multi-county juvenile detention facility. All other facilities are built by the county in the single, okay? And so it's another unique. So for that reason, we received an award from the National Association of Regional Council. Say, hey, you achieved a so-called achievement. Recognize that we are able to build a multi-county regional detention facility. And that's a quite achievement, yeah.
And so do you see that project is a continuing success? Do you think it served
Well,
the
you know, it's been changed because that we built in 1997, okay? And the bond is 20-year bond. This year is 20 years, okay? And Albany County said, well, you know, we own it, okay? And why don't we take it back, okay? So Albany County this year they take that facility, become county owned instead of CDYCI. But since the CDYCI already have a good relation with the other county, they will try to continue to retain CDRPC to oversight that project. And the CDRPC have a contract with the county to manage that project through CDYCY. So that, even that now become county owned.
So does that mean that it doesn't accept regional?
They accept the regional. They also abide with the original commitment. They allow the three county have priority. Other three county, in addition to Albany County, have priority to use of the facility. And if they have a extra vacancy, the bed, they can accept other county. We established so-called 18 county catchment area. All other county surrounding the capital district can use that facility as long as we have a vacancy. But the 4 county have a priority to use of the facility. Yeah.
So let's talk about another project that was really important. Economic development became an important goal during your time, and I just wanted you to talk a little bit more about foreign trade zones and the economic development district, what they were, and what they were responding to, perhaps.
Well, the economic development district, okay, one of the requirements of the economic development district is that we have to establish the so-called overall economic development plan, OEDP, okay, set up the goal and identify all the local projects in the region. So when the local government want to get the grant, make sure the project is a part of the regional plan, okay? For example, the Port of Albany, we secured $1 million for the Albany County Albany Port to purchase a crane. Before that, Albany Port doesn't have a crane to handle all the big box, the container box, okay. Through that project, they were able to get the fund. We set up in Green Village. They set up some kind of economic project. They need the access road. They need some kind of facility, to set up to build a warehouse and something like that. Through us, we say, okay, that will be identified as a part of regional economic development plan. So they get the funding. We fund many other projects. I just mentioned that example. So that the benefit to local government in terms of actual economic development. Okay. And the commission still receive some grant for planning, on economic development. And we also able to provide the economic impact analysis for all the project, local government. The project, they have to justify what the benefit of the particular project, and they come to commission and say, okay, can you do an analysis for us? So we were able to do that kind of analysis, for local government. Yeah.
And can you describe what the foreign trade zones are? Because there were several foreign trade zone projects in your time, and so if you could explain that and maybe give a couple of examples?
Well, okay, I'm sorry. Foreign trade zone, okay, the concept actually started in this country very early in 1974, okay, the Foreign Trade Act, okay. That means at that time they try to kind of increase the activity of the port of United States port, okay. They ask foreign merchandise, to come to use the port, okay. I'm sorry. And the concept is that the foreign good come to locate in a zone, okay. A zone is a area, all time is all in the port, okay. A warehouse in the port, okay. The foreign merchandise come to the zone, you don't have to pay tax, import tax at the beginning, until that merchandise has been moved out from the zone to the custom area, then you start to pay. So that saves money for the importer, okay? And you can keep that merchandise in the zone for a long time without paying any duty. So that saves, the importer. And it's okay. That's the original concept. But in 1960, the concept has been kind of expanded, not just for warehousing, but also for manufacturing, okay? Because like in Detroit, all the automobile, all the parts are not just U.S. made. A lot of parts come from foreign country, okay? And entire Detroit have been created as a foreign trade zone. They call sub-zone, special zone. And all the foreign parts come to that zone, have access. At the beginning is no tax, okay, during that assembly time, okay. Once they build it, the tax rate is lower than the individual part, okay, become finished product. So save $1 million for the whole, for the automobile plant. That I'm use that example, okay. So foreign trade zone become the economic project for many local community, and we are the first one or second one to set up as a regional foreign trade zone, because most of foreign trade zone in other part of the country are set up by the Chamber of Commerce or local government, the city or the port, okay. Very few set up by the regional community like us. So we kind of very, I would say probably one or two, regional foreign trade zone in the country, okay. And actually, the state have to pass the state special legislation to allow us to set up, but we are not only the capital district, we are only the entire custom territory, which cover, I think, 10 counties. The zone we are able to authorize or any part of the 10 counties to set up a sub-zone or general purpose zone.
And so what impact do you think that had on the economy of the capital district?
It kind of surprised me a little bit slow. Originally I say, well, a lot of company may jump in on that, but surprised me for some reason. It's kind of slow. The first one we have is at the Galaxy, Northeastern Industrial Park. We have a company produced 12B, vitamin 12B, and they import the ingredient from Europe, and that time is a very high tax rate, duty. I think over 20% or something like that, And since they use a foreign trade zone, when they can import without paying a duty, and then mix with other item and produce become B12, and the duty reduced substantially. So that's a benefit to the company. Okay, and I don't know. At this time, I think we have a staff in charge of the foreign. I think we set up several foreign trade zones in the region. And that that had a great potential, but international trade is a kind of always it's a moving situation. You never know when the custom rate of particular item will be increased or reduced, depend on how we negotiate with other country. So that affect the company to decide whether to use a foreign trade zone or not. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask too, so the CDRPC has involvement in economic development, but you also mentioned several environmental projects. Can you talk about some of your environmental management, things like sewerage and water use planning, and also how you, let's start there. Can you just talk about some of those environmental projects?
When I came on board, there's a couple of projects, environmental projects going on. The commission actually hired a consultant from Boston to develop the solid waste, management project, and but that project was shortchanged, because Harmony County's suddenly they say, okay, they can develop a recycle project near in North Pearl Street. I don't know where that project's there. They say, all right, we can go along. We can just burn the solid waste instead of, building the solid waste. Okay, okay. And that, as I recall, is the first environmental project the commission undertake, but we didn't get through because it's very difficult for a county to say, all right, where are you going to locate? Nobody wanted to. Have to do the NIMI, situation. Okay, that environmental project. The other project, I think, is through special study. I think we did certain project on the contaminated water source. A small project. I think one in Saratoga County. I think I think Todd did that project. I recall. So environmental project, I think is more successful after I leave. I think Rocky is the one carrying out, a lot of environmental project, since after I left. Okay, yeah. But I don't recall, some of the small project,
So let's go back to, you talked a little bit about the funding of the board and, the funding of the CDRPC, and you mentioned the board. So I wanted to go back and can you explain the relationship between the CDRPC and its board of commissioners, and the relationship with the counties, how that actually worked in practice?
Well, I mentioned earlier, the local government, back 50 years ago, very parochial. They are very limited interaction among the county. Okay, for example, at the beginning, our commission always, the board meeting always in Albany County. Okay, and later on, some of the members say, "Wow, why don't we also meet other location instead of just Albany County? So we did it, okay? And I recall one meeting, we tried to have a meeting in Schenectady County, in city of Schenectady. And I hear one of the board member from Saratoga County, where is, that location, that. They never visit, your neighbor city. They never, cross the boundary and try to know each other, okay? And between the board, we got the Republican, we got the, Democrat, and they don't even, know each other, talk each other, or they don't trust each other too. So that's the kind of situation at the board back in 50, 40 years ago. Yeah, that. So gradually they now recognize and they kind of become more friendly and they know each other. So that's a major change, that, okay. Instead of, okay, you're Albany County, I'm, just looking for my, county benefit, don't care if the other, they're willing not to share. Now they say, all right, we are a region, we're part of the region, and they accept any local project as long as it's in the region. So that's a major change, I think, among the board members here.
So you think the relationship between the CDRPC planners and the Board of Commissioners that are representatives from the 4 counties, so Albany, Saratoga, Schenectady, and Rensselaer, you say it improved. So why do you think it improved?
Well, it's an entire trend, okay? Let me give you an example. 50 years ago, in the private sector, there's a push for create a regional chamber, okay? And some very enlightened, business people say, hey, we'd like to create a regional chamber. That didn't go through, okay? Each local chamber said, no, we are not going to be part of a regional chamber. We'd like to maintain autonomy, okay? And that changed, okay, gradually changed, okay? From the private sector, they say, hey, they are part of, we are all part of the region, okay? To succeed, we also have to recognize, okay? So right now, you get a CEG, okay? Central Economic Growth, okay? Become the regional and very powerful. Schenectady County Chamber merged with the Albany County Colony Chamber. You never have that, 30, 40 years ago. We tried, but not successful. Now it's all successful. All the private sector start to recognize they are part of a region. That also affect the attitude of the public sector. The local mind say, yes, we are part of the region, okay? Don't just say, hey, these projects only benefit us, benefit everyone, okay? So that's a major change, and so it's a trend, more recognition of regional concept, regional support. Yeah.
And so you also mentioned, so you had this relationship with the Board of Commissioners and the 4 counties, so that's one relationship. And then you also mentioned having relationships with other regional planning bodies. So you mentioned specifically the Capital District Transportation Commission and the Capital District Transportation Association.
Yeah.
Would you talk about your relationship with them and how that evolved?
CDTC, you look at this, okay, CDTC, when they create, CDRPC is the one provided staff support for CDTC, okay, because at that time, the transportation business is controlled by the state DOT, okay, they don't like too much about the region, okay, so they sue CDRPC, we say, okay, CDTC, I don't know, the person, John Poorman, executive director of CDTC. He's passed away last year, okay? And we hire him, under CDRPC, okay? He originally worked for us and then become CDTC staff. Okay, we are the one support them. And CDRPC board also representative in CDTC. One of our board member is on the CDTC board, okay? And there's a interaction between CDRPC, CDTC, and CDTA. Our board member, one of our board members used to be CDTA board member, even become the chairman, okay? So between the board member, they have some interaction, okay? The board member, Westfield, Albany Colony Township was also, he's the CDRPC board member. He's also the CDTA board member and the CDTC board member. So there's an interaction among the board member in these three organizations. So we come up very close, support each other, okay.
And maybe, so how did your projects align in terms of your own regional plans? Did they always sort of work in concert? I guess, did you have a lot of cooperation on projects?
Yeah, very close. For example, even today, some of the CDRPC activity are also financially supported by CDC grant. Okay, they receive money from for DOT, federal government. Okay, they provide the funding for CDRPC to make a demographic analysis projection. Okay, because for transportation planning, you need a very good demographic economic data. Those are the information provided by CDRPC, and they pay CDRPC to do that kind of work. Okay, so that's another relation between us and CDTC. And for CDTA, I think sometimes they use us to do an analysis of the route. Okay, the ridership, some kind of information, and we always support them when they apply for federal grant. We say, okay, this part of the regional project, we will actually make a recommendation, to support their grant. So that's a mutual support, yeah.
And did you share goals with the CDTA in terms of transportation planning?
Yes, I think CDTC, they are one of the several projects that use our forecast project, tied together, the regional plan and the CDTC long-range transportation plan. I think they are all kind of at least consistent, between the two.
So let's talk a little bit about the funding. So you mentioned that the federal government is a major source of funding. How did federal priorities, because you talked about the federal government having a very large interest in regional planning. Can you talk about how changing federal priorities affected the CDRPC and its plan?
Well, our country, within this country, national policy, we really don't have a consistent, urban policy, national urban policy. Okay, so back in 1960, they realized, the suburbanization, all that, grow and the decline of central city, so they say, all right, we got to, set up some kind of regional planning to kind of revitalize the central city, and so they put up a lot of financial resource, to increase even mandate local government to have a plan. Okay, before that, local government doesn't have required to have a city plan or whatever, is volunteer. Okay, there's no mandate. Back in 1960, they say yes, you must have a local general plan, regional plan, all that. So this is quite a push from the federal government, and they provide a lot of grant under 701 program. You hear that term? 701 program is part of the 1965 Metropolitan Planning Act, one of the sections called 701. Through that 701 program, federal government provide a lot of money, to support local and regional planning, okay? But after Carter administration, for some reason, the national policy kind of changed. They said, well, they don't like to mandate too much to the local government. So first, they no longer 701 program to fund local government. They also eliminated the A95 review project. I mentioned A95 review, OMB, A95, review guideline mandate that all the local application for federal grant must go through so-called A95 review by regional planning agency to make that to justify, say this project is consistent with the regional plan. Okay. So that also been, I don't know, no longer exists at all. So that eliminated, the federal support of that. And the state also eliminated. The state used to be, New York State one time had one of the best state planning. Okay, so through OPC, Office of Planning Coordination is the executive office. Okay, that's very powerful organization. Have 150 planner. All at that time they assemble all the top-notch planner in this country working at the office, but they become because they're too powerful, make some other state department kind of feel uncomfortable. Or suddenly through the state legislation they abolish that organization. So we don't have a state, regional or state planning organization. Right now I think they have a coastal zone program, small, grant under Department of State, or maybe even DEC. I don't know. They shifted around. Yeah. So state also cut off, their statewide planning organization, and we used to have at our board meeting we have a state OPC representative sit on the board to observe what we are doing. Right now we don't. I don't think the commission have anything to do with any region, state planning organization. Maybe through separate project, the environmental project Rocky is doing last few years. Maybe DEC have some, connection with that, but we don't have any connection with the state, regional or state planning organization. Yeah. Well, at that one time, our commission had so-called aviation planning. Department of State, Department of Transportation have an aviation planning unit. They use CDRPC to develop the so-called region-wide aviation plan, I think, but that's also been cut off. I don't see. Yeah.
So actually, can you talk a little bit more about aviation planning and how that evolved?
Well, at that time, there's a mandate by Federal Aviation Administration require that you got to have a region-wide aviation plan, okay? And in addition to the major airport like Albany County Airport, you have a lot of general aviation plan. I think in this region we have almost more than 2,000 general aviation plan, aviation airport. General aviation probably small airport, okay, for small airport. And we had to tie together and to make sure how they can serve locality well and comply with the federal regulation, okay. So we used to receive some grant from New York State DOT to do regional aviation plan, okay, but I don't think that existed, so they changed the policy. At one time we have a criminal justice advisory council, CDRPC have that, okay. At that time DCJS used regional planning commission to coordinate some of the local criminal justice project, for example, the radio communication system. They try to accept. They use CDRPC, as the so-called, local regional agency to help them, to identify the project. Okay, but I don't think that project, that program is no longer exist though. So.
Can you I'm sorry, can you explain that program again?
Criminal justice coordination, yeah. But we did a few successful projects. Through that project, I create the town colony youth I think it's town colony. That's a project name. I say town colony youth project. Okay, that means when the youth commit some kind of minor crime, like a shift, like shoplift, some kind of criminal justice, minor project. They have the advisory group to go through that process instead of sending them, to the formal criminal justice process. They advise the kid to have a volunteer service, that kind of thing. I think that colony youth project. I think that's project. Yeah, I forgot the name. Yeah, so we do have a criminal justice planning project. When I was there, but those that disappeared. So the commission, coming, go, we always changing. Somebody say regional planning is the opportunity, looking for some opportunity. Okay, so the commission can do anything as long as they are not project by local law or whatever. They can extend to any other project. And what the Mark is doing and Rocky did it. So we are most in different position. We no longer do just the federal government or state government.
And let me go back to another point you made, and you suggest sort of the concern about regional planning on the federal government level and maybe even the state level lessened a little bit. Do you think that's changing at all?
Well, it depends on the project. Right now, for example, at one time, the HUD, Department of Housing, Urban Housing, HUD, okay. Development, they are pushing for so-called public housing, equal, opportunity for low-income family. Okay, public housing project. They push very hard that you got to provide more opportunity for the low-income family, and we even developed the so-called regional housing project. That means try to mandate local government to build, to share how many, low-income family housing each locality must have. We even go through that. That's very difficult to sell to local government. We leave a formula, but nobody really would like to accept that. Okay.
So why do you think that was hard to sell to people, the concept of you said you mandated basically they had to have public housing?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
But local government don't have to accept that, okay? You got to persuade them, say, hey, it's good for the society, for the community to have enough housing, for the local income family. But that you have persuasion. We cannot really mandate, from the top. In other states, yes, like New Jersey, they have that kind of formula. They mandate local low income housing. But I think in this area, they will accept that. Also, we have developed a formula on the paper, say, okay, based on what the income level of this community, you need to have so many units. But I don't think that we're successful about that. Yeah.
Are there any other projects that you would really like to talk about or highlight, or any other parts of the CDRPC?
I think we covered most of the other project. I don't recall any other project. Yeah. At this time, without going back, the annual report of what I say, I really cannot recall, yeah.
Well, so
yeah.
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What would you say your biggest accomplishment was at the CDRPC, looking back?
Well, I think I served the commission for almost 33 years, okay, so since 1970. I'm kind of, my accomplishment is just able to make a CDRPC survive during all the difficult time. At the same time, able to carry out some of the project which really beneficial to the area. But to keep commission survive is one of the major tasks. I can see many regional planning board across the state, they fail. They, like we no longer have a so-called Buffalo Niagara Regional Planning Board, okay, because that failed, they abolished, okay. Genesee Finger Planning Board used to be one of the best, most powerful, regional planning board, but that board be very weakened because of the misconduct of the executive directors. I don't have to mention that reason, okay. And some other regional planning board didn't run, the staff didn't really have a so-called very qualified, staff. Their organization seemed to be, very, from my point of view, it's become a very weak, okay, organization, okay. So I think, I think served the purpose, that, I am able to build the CDRPC as a accept regional institution in the area, okay, and that allow the CDRPC continue to function, to do the kind of job right now, the new CDRPC is doing now, okay, yeah.
So you mentioned difficult times. So what difficult times specifically do you feel you pulled the CDRPC through?
Well, I think I mentioned back in 1980s, that period of time, okay, because when the economy become tough, and that tough to not just local government, it was particularly tough for CDRPC. Every county is looking the way to try to cut their budget, and the first line of cut is so-called outside agency like CDRPC, and you continue to face that. You, at the budget time, I always have to negotiate what the share of this county, and make some adjustment, because some of the county may not fully support you, based on the budget. And when you have that time, you got to make an adjustment and cut staff or whatever program, whatever. So it's the kind of a situation. So budgeting is one of the major difficulty in this organization, particularly as executive director. Try to make sure we got enough funding, to support the staff and support the program. And you have to convince the local government and say, okay, you need support, CDRPC, and a lot of personal interaction too. You deal with the county executive, county manager, county administrator on a personal basis. Sometimes I'll also use our commission, say, hey, a lot of behind the scenes, persuasion. I think interpersonal relation is very important too. As an executive director, you don't like to offend, too many people. Also, I did have a consultation, maybe not the record. Okay, you don't have the cut. You don't have the record this part. You heard? Okay.
Oh,
I think we don't have to mention. I think after this record, I can mention you. I have one confrontation with the county executive on the detention project.
so well. Speaking of maybe those types of things, if you could go back, what would you do differently as executive director, or is there anything you would do differently? I guess I should ask.
Well, I stick on my profession. A lot of people in my friend is start as a planner, but they never, finished their career as a planner. They change always, quit, to change other business. To me, planning, is my life, and I enjoy it. The planning, I use my knowledge and provide, some, contribution to the society, and I really enjoy the job very much. And I was able to cover from the local to county, metro, and the region. So I think it's quite a unique position for me to go through that. I have not other choice. As a business, I'm not going to change my life and go to other business.
So let me ask you this. I asked you about your legacy, but what would you say after 50 years?
Yeah.
What is the CDRPC's legacy? What should people take away from their 50 years of service?
Well, if condition, continue, well, willing to, take a risk, and willing to initiate a new project when the opportunity come, and there's almost unlimited, potential for CDRPC to do any other thing, as long as they have a good staff, okay? As long as they have a commitment from the board, a good board member is also very important, and support from the board, a good staff. I think professionalism is one of the major ingredient for successful CDRPC, and that's my own experience. We always hire the best people. We, during my term as CDRPC, the professionalism is one important thing. Yeah.
And finally, what new challenges do you think the CDRPC might face in the future? We talked about some main challenges that they faced in the early years. They were concerned about suburbanization. Are they facing some of the same challenges? And are there new challenges that you think they might face now?
Well, I don't really follow up, the situation, up to now, what's going on. That's probably Rocky and Mike maybe much more closely observed what's going on, because I left the job, almost 13 years ago, and I don't really, go back and see, and to observe, what's going on, what is the future. I think you better ask Rocky and ask Mike about, what that. They should know that better than me.
Well, I guess at least let me ask you this, because you brought up suburbanization.
Yeah.
Such a major goal, trying to manage suburban growth. Do you think that the CDRPC managed to do that?
Well, I think, by working with CDTC and CTA, try to provide efficient, transportation service through certain type of land use, management. I think is very important. I think we should continue to promote that, what type of land use the local government should have, the region should have, and work with the transportation sector and CDTC. I think jointly, I think we have a major responsibility to shape the future of the region. Yeah.
Do you have any advice for the current CDRPC from your years of experience?
Well, I think they are doing a very good job so far, as I understand. They doing, continuous do the forecast, the environmental, project, doing the managed, major, project going on, and so the existing stuff. I don't know the background with everyone. Okay, a lot of project depend on what kind of staff you have. Okay, able to do something different. So that I'm not quite familiar with the current staff qualification, but I understand some of the project they are doing is very extraordinary, like Todd is doing, on the energy efficiency project, which is almost half of the state, upstate New York State he's doing, and involves so many community, and that's the major project he's doing. And I think it continue to working on what is good. Okay, that's the one thing, and then expand to others. Yeah.
So you say work on what you're good at. Is that what you mean? Work at what you're good at?
Well, what the commission already doing well. Mm-hmm. Keep that project going on, okay, and then try to see what a new opportunity, other project you can go expand. But I think to make sure you continue to do a good job and don't kind of fall up, on the project you're doing. Okay, that's important to get people respect you.
So just as a follow-up, so what do you think the CDRPC does particularly well then?
Well, CRP is very strong. One, for example, for the last 50 years, the information system the commission doing is one of the stronger point. Nobody else can substitute or replace CDRPC on that. We continue to provide data service, analysis, focus on that. That basic planning function CDRPC doing, and then CDRPC were able to provide unbiased, review and advice for local government, and we are a non-partisan organization. That's important. CDRPC, the function non-partisan. We don't really say you're a Democrat or Republican or that. And I think CDRP try to treat, all the county equally. We don't just say, okay, since Albany County provide more funding to CDRPC, we kind of more favors, Albany County project. I think CDRPC, one of the unique situations. Most of all the other regional planning, their funding is based on the one man, one vote basis. I mean, you have more population, you have more weight in the ball, and you provide more money. CDRPC is different. On an equal basis. Yeah.
You reminded me of one thing I did want to ask about as well. You mentioned providing data.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is new technology. And technology was changing pretty rapidly at the time. So would you talk about the role of technology in the CDRPC?
Well, when I came on board, I invest heavily on upgrade the CDRPC computer capability. We developed the regional GIS, Geographical Information System, which is one of the best among the region in the state. Okay, that's a good investment, and that is much most stronger, ability, of the CDRPC, and so the information by using most advanced technology, like a information system, like a geographic information system. Yeah.
Is there any other projects or any other
Do you
reflections that
remember,
you feel?
our commission used to have back in 1970, we have three secretary, okay, used or, type, okay. And then we computerized, now we have only one secretary, And every planner use a computer, okay, by their own. We no longer, ask, the secretary to type for you. You can type. The technology is, I think we utilize mostly, advanced technology. So the staff size is kind of reduced. We no longer have a big staff. Everyone, the productivity of each staff is much, greater now than before. Yeah.
So is there anything else we should have talked about that we didn't? Any other reflections you think are really important?
I think we cover all the territory, all everything. Since you can digest what I say, what is important. I think we cover everything. I don't think anything I have to add. But I just think I really enjoy to work in this organization from the day one until I retire. I really enjoy it. And I enjoy my relation with all the board members. Even today, we still, sometimes get together, although one by one they're, kind of passing, that's okay. And I also have a very good relation with the staff, that even today, and that's really, amazing, you don't cut off from, what you had before, and you were able to get some, good relations, with the existing staff and the board member. That's yeah.
Well, Mr. Chen, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I really appreciate it.
I really enjoyed the interview with you. Okay, yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.